how to create a furry brush design such as this in Affinity Photo. I'm using version 2, but much the same can be done in version 1. First thing to do, you always need a new layer. So go over here, layer and new layer. So layer and new layer, and I'm going to use a gradient. So gradient tool, just go over here and you can see the gradient tool there, select that. By default, it will always be white to black. I think that's a pity. I wish it would store the previous used gradient, but it doesn't. Drag it across, and I'm just going to use linear. So you can see up here, linear. But you can modify the gradient as well. But a useful thing, go to swatches. Now, you may not have a huge amount of swatches. Gradient ones, just go to the gradient section. It's the swatches. You can find that in the window menu and swatches. So gradients, please check out my video on how to create multiple gradients. And you can select any of these gradients. I'm going to go with this one, but you can of course vary it. You might not want one that's got a lot of a single colour, though this one maybe is a bit dominated by the reds, but you can vary it. Move that away now. Now the layers, what the next thing to do is I want a mask. Just want a mask in it. So go down here. This is the difference in version 2 and version 1. You'll see a lot more masks there. I'm just going to go with mask. That's the first one, and select that, and then you'll see a mask generated. And then you can add some transparency. So what you can do, you can use the gradient tool, select it, and that will also use the default one, so linear and that white to black. And you can tweak it. You don't have to use that. You can go and modify the stops for that to create different designs as well. And you can change the angles. You can go from linear to elliptical and so on to create a variety of different brush designs. I'm just going to go with linear. And I can move it around, and I'm just going to go with this one. Just going to go with one. Otherwise, I could spend all day going backwards and forwards. But you can always go to it later. It's still live. If you keep it, you can still modify it later. So with that, what I now can do, I can add effects. So I'm just going to go here, select the pixel layer. You see the pixel layer there. Let's just drag that there, bit there. That's selected. Then go to layer, and I can go to down here to new live filter layer. It's unfortunate new live mask layer, which end up going down to there. No, it's the new live filter layer. And distort and mesh warp. So mesh warp, select that. And now you will see a bounding box around this. That's the mesh warp, and you can modify it in thousands of ways. You can add additional various nodes, but I'm just going to go with the basic 4 corner nodes here. Please check out my video on how to use the mesh warp. And you can distort this design. You can drag from there to there, and that's what I want. I want to create this nice like propeller, sort of very crunched in design. So I'm just going to move that there, move that there. And of course you can still tweak the mask. If you want to, you can go back to it, tweak it, change it. But I think that's quite nice, that design. And you can, of course, continue to modify it, distort it, change it. Now, the result may be crude sometimes when you come to rasterize it, which is the reason for the next stage, the motion blur. So I'm just going to go done. Now, at this point, I would suggest save it. Save it to your assets. Because then, if you want to come back and use this as a starting point again, you can always do that. And that's window and assets. Very useful place to store various pieces of work, various stages of work. But I'm now going to rasterize this. So layer and down to rasterize. So I'm just going to go there. And now that's been rasterized, what I can now do is I can use that with various effects. I'm just going to resize it as well slightly. Just don't want it near the edge, so I just want it about there. I'm going to do it filters and blur and motion blur. So motion blur, and again you could probably use some live filter effects as well if you want to use those. But again, it's always best when you're doing brushes to rasterize. So it's, and you can see you can distort it, move that up and down, and you can go there. Let's go to motion. You can see you can change it here as well. But personally, I think just as easy working interactively until you're happy with creating this sort of nice crossing the colours. You've got the blue, the red, the green, and so on. Of course, you can create a variety of other colours. And you could, of course, always go to layer menu and new adjustment layers to add, maybe turn it in black and white, maybe turn it, change HSL, whatever. Load of different colour options possible there. But I'm going to go with that, so apply. That's going to be my brush, the source of the brush. So brushes panel, you can find that in the window menu again, but all the panels now are here in version 2. And with that, you can go here, right side menu and new brush from selection. Select that one, new brush from selection. So that selection is now stored away in the brushes. Now you could, again, exactly the same as before, save it to assets, use it for later work. I'm just going to delete it. So it's gone, double click, and now you can see the brush. So just double click at any time. Now another great thing, I would suggest maybe duplicate it. If you don't want to lose the original brush, always duplicate the thing before you start editing. Because as soon as you start editing, you might find, oh, what was it? How can I get back to the original one? So you've got here now, now I'm in dynamics. It will obviously vary depending on what one you were in last. So size jitter, you can change that. So it will go from small to big, depending on if you're using an art pad and pen. You've also got pressure, you've got random, you've got a load of great features that you can use. So you could use random as well. Great, interesting designs. I'm going to go with pressure. Also rotation jitter, and you can see the result here. It will turn and twist randomly. And here it's set to random. But you can change that, make that pressure instead. Again, if you've got an art pad and pen. Also, what you do, you think, oh, you know what? I don't really want the reds, the blues to be consistently always reds, blues, just hue jitter. You can go through that. You can just change it. Don't have to go full max. Maybe just subtle change, just about there. Perfectly reasonable. Maybe saturation jitter. You can just change it, tweak it if you want it like that. You can see it. Obviously, you've got the preview, so you can just decide, you know what? I don't want it to go whites and blacks and those sort of things. I want hue jitter to be about there. So let's just go back to general. Now, the one that's set in, I always wish it would default to 1. Unfortunately, it always puts it to about 15 to start with. You can push it to spacing and you can push it there. So now you've got spacing at 1%. And you can see the result. Again, you might think, oh, don't really like that. Maybe I'll change it a bit more. Maybe change those colours. And you can see different result depending on the hue jitter, size jitter. You tweak again and close. So I'm just going to go with that as a brush. You can always go back to it, duplicate it again, close, always right click and duplicate. And then you've got another brush stroke. So now with the brush, make sure you go over to the paintbrush tool. Let's just go to the paintbrush tool and there's, now it's quite a large brush. I'm going to reduce that down. I don't like it that size. It's just a bit too big, 400. Now you could set it by default to be that via this panel. I didn't do that, but you can then see as I apply it, you get this lovely blurry, smeary sort of propeller, I don't know, flower-like design, which you can add very quickly to your design. And of course, what you can also do, and that's without any pressure there, you can also, of course, apply effects. You can always go here, filters, apply maybe color settings here, auto levels, and so on. You've got these ones as well. These ones I created earlier. You can see the same sort of design, this sort of design. They're all created using basically the same approach. This one doesn't have that blurriness. But you can create all kinds of unique brushes just by using gradients, masks, and other effects in Affinity Photo. Hope you found this of interest. Any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you much.